All right. I think we're close to getting the tool database working. It's been all weekend. I started working on this maybe Thursday afternoon, definitely Friday, Saturday, most of Sunday, and I think it's close. I've had to restart 3 times, like just completely scrap it and start over 3 times. Each time, though, I learned more about how it should be implemented, which is awesome because I would have an idea, kind of like where I wanted to end up and a few things that I thought would need to be included along the way and like what I thought the shortest path would. And then as I implemented, I realized, oh, well, I also need to account for how users, when there are user accounts, are going to be integrated, and how are tools going to be enabled or disabled based on software packages or different variants that people might want to purchase. Or like, what if they have a package that enables a certain set of tools? How is that tracked? And then what if there are different users that have different levels of like tool access? Like let's say, for example, you're a private consultant doing an investigation, incident response or whatever, and you need to ship this to somebody at another company, and you want them to run a series of processes and send it back to you, have the data just automatically transferred back. What should they have access to? How should it be enabled for them? And the reality is ultimately, like, you want a mode that you can put it in where it only displays a few menu options. It's very limited in what tools it can run. It makes it a very simple user interface. So like the user interface that you would normally see gets swapped out for take this, press the buttons, and it does the thing that you need it to do. For somebody that you just needed to do this one thing, right? Automate the process, send it back to you. How do you enable that? So how do you enable individual tools? How do you enable different user profiles? How do you account for updates? So like if a tool gets updated, how does that get ingested into the database? Internationally, like what if there's tools where licensing doesn't permit them to be, or laws that don't permit the tool to be used in certain countries? How do you enable or disable that? So like I had to take a serious step back and look at how I was, because all of this is tied together within the tool structure. And I need to get it as right as I can early on so that it can grow. And if I can get the AI to get me there, absolutely, let's do it. Let's go. So I would learn from the process. And the AI, I think, is learning from the process. It's hard to know, but it seems like when I go through an iteration and I try to implement a feature and it gets to a point where the AI is just like going down a path it shouldn't go and it's just like confused and it's not working, I will start over. Like I will spend all day working on trying to get a feature implemented. And then at the end of the day, realize, yeah, this isn't working. Scrap the whole thing, start over, like maybe update the context again, at least make sure everything's refreshed and current. And usually it is before I start adding a feature. And then start implementing it. And it seems like the second time, in this case, the third or fourth time, when you go back and redo that reiteration, it just goes so much smoother. And then it ends up working, which makes me think that it's remembering the steps that it took and like somehow. I'm not exactly sure like how that would work because a lot of times I don't want it to remember the history of what it was screwing up. So I'll have to like reset the chats and everything and start over fresh, no chat history. But it always seems to go better the next time. Yeah, we'll see. But it seems to be going really well. The microcontroller, the MCU, when it uploads, it's automatic. It goes into bootloader mode automatically. Sometimes it will, like the code will be such a way that it just won't automatically upload. I don't know if that's the code or if that's something that's going on with how Linux is interacting with the microcontroller. That's working. I can see everything in the database. All the features are untouched, at least the working ones. So one of the things that I always have an issue with, or frequently have an issue with, is it'll go through and it'll delete all the settings for everything under the settings menu. It's like, oh yeah, I'm trying to update this one other feature way over here. I'm trying to add these like tool capabilities, update the tool menu. And it's like, oh, we're going to just get rid of this whole settings menu. Or it'll mess with the serial instructions for how the microcontroller communicates, like Bluetooth syncing or something with the host. And then I've got to like revert back. But all of that is working. So that's a huge relief. And as I'm like watching the AI work, it's locked on. Like it's good. It seems like it's locked on. It's on target. We're going in the right direction. It's not touching anything that it shouldn't be touching. So yeah, I think we're rocking and rolling. I'm hoping that we'll have this working by the end of the day. We'll see. I was hoping that all of this would be done by last Friday, but I really think that getting the tool, like I had to take a step back, update the plan. So that was actually something that I did yesterday is I spent a couple of hours going back through like really refining the plan. Like as I had realized all of the additional things that needed to be considered in this stage of implementation, I had to go back and refactor the plan. And I think it ended up being like 10 pages of like, this is what we need to do. This is how we need to implement it. Here's all the things to consider. So it was a lot, and I went back and forth between different AIs and what do you suggest here? What do you think about this? Do you have any questions? Is this confusing? Does this make sense? Given this context, is there anything that I'm missing? And so my engineering AI that has access to all of my like business plans and all that stuff would evaluate it and say, oh, you need to consider this, you need to consider this. And that's actually how I figured out about the international switching capabilities, because it's like, what are you going to do if you sell internationally and tool's not legal to use, or you can't export it or whatever. It's got export controls now built into the database structure. So it would evaluate it, and then I'd throw it over to AI Studio, which is Google's latest, or at least get Google's latest model, run it through there. So it's just pulling different context, more restrained context, and the results I get from that are phenomenal. And then I'm using Claude 4 Opus, sorry, Jim, on my development IDE, so on my software side, and that will go through. That's primarily what I'm starting with as the baseline, because it knows the code, and it's actually pretty good about like understanding what I'm trying to do now. And so then, just kind of going back and forth between those, and eventually after a couple hours, I have a really good plan, and then we just start implementing, and it's been working. It's been a process. There's been a lot of troubleshooting along the way, but I think we're in a good place. So I'm hoping by the end of the day, I will have a tool queue with menus that I can scroll through and that dynamically updates from the database. And the other thing is I need a way for the microcontroller to remember the profile, like if it reboots. And another thing is I need the microcontroller to remember the profile that was the last active profile, like if you power it off and then it comes back on, because the microcontroller will switch on. I mean, it takes 3 seconds for the thing to turn on, and it's going to take probably 30 seconds for the host system to boot up and like unlock itself and do the key pairing and all that stuff. But the microcontroller will be up, and I don't just want it sitting there not doing anything, because people are going to try to interact with it, and if it's just not doing anything, that's going to be frustrating. That's a bad user experience. How do you maintain that menu system based on all the different profiles and the tools that are installed and whatever? So, because right now, just to populate the menu as I was building it out, there's just a static array. And so it turns on, it's got the same tools displayed for each of the different menus. It doesn't change, it doesn't pull from the database. And I can't use that. And I can't have it be the same tools because somebody might not have access to a tool. So it needs to be based on what's in the database. And at least for now, it's going to be based on the last user profile that was logged in. So it'll reboot. You'll have maybe 25 seconds, and then based on who's logged in, it'll get an auto update and you'll see it. There's also an API set up for getting new tools. So like when a tool gets updated on the system, how does it then get imported into the database? And so there's a JSON structure that will allow the new tool to then get parsed into the JSON structure and added to the database. So that it says it's working. I haven't been able to test it yet, but right now I'm trying to get the main menu to display the stuff that's in the database. But all the user tables are in there, all the hardware tables are in there, all of the permissions tables, all of the license tables, the tool tables, all the stuff's in there. So some of it will take refining. I think there's some redundancy, especially when it comes to like tracking tool performance. There's a couple of tables that seem to do that, so I'll probably need to go through and refactor some of that. But as a first implementation, as the first functional implementation, I guess I should say, it seems like it's pretty solid. It's in a really good, like way better than I'd be able to do. It's amazing. Anyways, that's where we're at. I'm going to keep working on this. Hopefully today we can get that working and see where we're at tomorrow. All right. See ya.